welcome back. If you're going to call yourself Asia's World City, you would apparently wish to be seen as a multilingual and multicultural society, and that includes some lip service at least to the world's lingua franca, English. But if you are a non-Chinese speaker living in Hong Kong, it's been getting harder to keep up in a timely fashion with what's been going on, as the traditional English language news media has been shrinking.
Last year's Umbrella Movement protest highlighted some of Hong Kong's deepest political divisions. It also brought the SAR, for the first time in almost 2 decades, back into the focus of international media. It was a concentration of media attention not seen in Hong Kong since the city's handover in 1997. Unfortunately, the temporary nature of many of those assignments meant that overseas-based journalists were sometimes scrambling to catch up.
It's actually quite difficult for them to grasp the nuance of the Hong Kong story, because I think it's far more complex than they realize, and they may not have the historical context just because they haven't lived through this society during those times.
Hong Kong's own non-Cantonese speakers trying to follow local events sometimes feel even less well-served by the mainstream media. There's increasing cynicism in the community about the editorial stances of Hong Kong's non-subscription TV channels and daily newspapers. In English media, the situation is more crucial because there's just less of it.
There were a lot more broadcast media in Hong Kong prior to the handover, because the handover story was coming. And you had the BBC here and NHK and overseas operations, plus the local organizations were up and going. You had Metro News, which was operating then. You had commercial radio, which actually had an English service and did some work in those days. Now it doesn't really anymore. So it was a much livelier broadcast scene at that time.
英文傳媒如果講緊報紙嘅時候，得一份係付費，一份係免費嘅。如果係講緊電視台同埋電台嘅時候，咁電台得一個，電視台當然啦就係我哋都知道有2個，但係佢哋即係提供嗰個嘅信息，其實嚴格而言都係非常之係不足嘅。
Of course, in those days, the government didn't read Chinese, or the senior civil servants or the senior government officials didn't know Chinese. So if they want to know about how local people feel and some of the local issues, they actually welcome people who are local, who speak Chinese, who are Chinese, writing in English, which bridges the gap. But now it's the opposite.
Locally, you had the SCMP, you had the Hong Kong Standard. At one point, there was a third player, the Eastern Express, which was a whole new English language startup newspaper. So definitely it was more vibrant.
The Eastern Express got off to a good start, provided serious competition for the South China Morning Post, and for a while improved prospects for the English language journalists. Unfortunately, it folded in 1996, just 2 years after its launch. The Standard still exists as a free tabloid, but SCMP's dominance of English language dailies remains very much unchallenged.
Long time ago, even if 20 years ago, 15 years ago, even 15 years ago, I think when you're a visitor from outside, you very quickly become part of the Hong Kong community because you're immediately plugged into the most urgent local issues, and that's no longer happening.
Some non-Chinese speakers turn to social media and online sources for their local news. On Facebook, citizen journalists continue to report from ongoing protests in Mongkok and elsewhere in English. Also on the web, the Hong Kong Economic Journal launched its own English news website in 2011. Even the South China Morning Post web-based coverage, responding faster to the fast-changing news, can seem freer than reports that editors have had more chance to pore over.
The Post is capable of putting out a very good product, and when it turns its attention to something and its resources, as it did during Occupy Central, producing that rolling hour-by-hour update, they did an absolutely fantastic job that any newspaper should be proud of.
It was only during, I think, Occupy that when you saw the live blog on the SCMP that you truly saw local, English coverage, and we're trying to do that every day. There is a temporal and content gap between Chinese and English. What does get through is often late. You wait 6 hours to 2 days. There's even a time difference between the RTHK Chinese and English feeds. So we're trying to fill that void.
With a group of fellow journalists, Tom Grundy recently set up an independent web-based news service, the Hong Kong Free Press. Their website, which came online at the beginning of this month, already claims over 500,000 visitors.
It's about projecting Hong Kong's message to the international community, and especially in this really critical moment with the political reforms, with the narrowing of civil society, like the space for civil society, concerns with press freedoms.
Hong Kong Free Press is still hoping its business model of multiple revenue streams to be sustainable, but it is also facing the issue of accreditation.
On the day we launched, we got an email from the government saying that we're not going to get access to the government information system, which is standard, for any news media. It's also a struggle to get access to the CGO, central government offices, so that when there is a press conference, when CY or Carrie Lam or whatnot are speaking.
Now, with the addition of online media, government is very much challenged as to who is a qualified reporter, or are they just admitting just any ordinary citizen and giving them the privilege of the press? This policy really needs to be reviewed, because if you don't get access to government information, you're missing a lot.
And then there's the language issue.
I don't say it in English, but I hope I answered the question. You understood, right?
My audience doesn't understand.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I already explained it in Cantonese.
Yeah, we would like it in English, please.
Sorry?
We would like it in English, please.
I already provide the answer. Thank you.
尤其是好特別嘅就係喺呢一個嘅現任特首嘅梁振英先生佢上場之後啦，其實都有唔少嘅傳媒有一啲嘅投訴，就話及到點解嗰個嘅傳媒嘅採訪通知，又或者事後政府出嘅一啲嘅新聞稿咧，都係以中文為主，英文相對性嗰個量係同即係97以前，甚或至係97之後，都係有一個好大嘅量數上面嘅減少咧。
Journalism is about having an informed electorate. So how can we, if the government itself is not speaking one of its own designated official languages?
Since the handover, many media organizations have seen that there's more money to be made if they turn their sites to the mainland. The local non-Chinese speaking audience is just not as large. So apart from the political pressure, there are simple economic imperatives. But for Hong Kong as a society, there are other considerations.
If Hong Kong wants to portray itself as an international city, it has to be inviting to people who come from overseas. People have to feel like they can make a home here. People have to feel like this is a place where they can live, where they're part of some sort of community. And the news media are important to keep them not only posted with what's happening in the rest of the world, which is important in and of itself, and particularly if you're a business person, you need to know what's going on, but also to create a sense of community and a sense of belonging.